Community outrage swelling with demonstrations on Monday. A former Florida resident has been returned to the U.S. to face terrorism charges.
33-year-old Mohammed Fathi Suleiman, a U.S. citizen, has been charged with attempting to provide material support for a foreign terrorist organization. If convicted, he faces up to 20 years in prison. Authorities say he left Orlando in June of 2014 and was eventually arrested in Turkey and accused of illegally crossing into Syria. A search of Suleiman's emails reportedly revealed attachments containing various audio messages calling for jihad. John Saucier, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Mona Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mona Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today, like listen to us, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Featuring the latest special at Mezcla, Manopua, baked barbecue pork buns, Chinese-style barbecue pork in buttery pastry, $30 for a dozen. Call 479-2652 or 2653 to place your order.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, what else is new? That's not so new. I say it every day at the beginning of every exciting, educational, inspiring episode of Tall Tales. It's a good way for me to set the tone for the program, which is constitutionally inspired, conservatively oriented, grounded in truth, of course. Starting out with today's version of Zemi Ikutni. Miracle of miracles. Today, the Daily News did not run boilerplate from the USA Today or Gannett News Service. Is it possible that perhaps their internet is down and they couldn't get access to what they usually run in the editorial page? Well, they got a little help from a young man named Kai Akimoto. And Kai Akimoto is the guest columnist. And judging from what Kai wrote, Kai Akimoto lives right here on the island. And it's a nice little story. Kai lost his wallet. Somebody found his wallet. He, as soon as he went on Facebook, he knew that someone had found his wallet. He called the finder. They arranged a rendezvous. Kai was ready to give the finder a monetary reward. I don't know if I've lost stuff, and I always offer the person who finds it something, because when you lose your wallet, it kind of doesn't matter how much money you got in your wallet. What you really want back is your driver's license and all the important identification, which I once upon a time lost my wallet and had to go through the process of getting brand new everything. No fun at all. I would rather give somebody a couple $100 and just let them keep the money and just give me the cards back. But anyhow, Kyle, the finder had the wallet. He gave it to Kyle. Kyle offered him a reward, and the man turned it down. He said, "No, thanks. Have a nice day." So Kyle thought it was appropriate to mention the gentleman's name. So I will mention the gentleman's name. We only have his surname. You would have to look long and hard to find a shorter surname than this gentleman. So let's have a drum roll, and then I will announce the name of the man who found and returned Kai's wallet. His name was A. Yeah, part of the cheer, yay, right? This guy's name was, let's have a yay for A. Okay, well, Mr. A, good on you. Nice gesture. We're so used to dealing with bad news when we pick up the paper or turn on the TV. It's just nice to find something a little heartwarming for a change.
Was his first name Hose?
Say again?
Was his first name Hose?
Jose. Yeah. Maybe he's your cousin. Okay. Then we go to the Post. Doesn't exactly give you warm and fuzzies. And here's what the Post says. The Post says, Gov Guam budget not in sync with reality. The government of Guam's proposed spending plan for fiscal 2022 is in. The governor's office describes it as a conservative budget. I'd like to see one of her radical budgets. The governor's proposal estimates there will be a decrease in revenue. I could have told him that myself. You don't need a Bureau of Budget and Management Research to come up with that kind of conclusion. The governor's proposal estimates there will be decrease in revenue, which is expected as many businesses still haven't bounced back from shutdowns and losses last year. Many businesses are still shut down, I might also remind you, Governor. But the estimate that there will only be a $29 million decrease in revenue and that Gov Guam can still spend $927 million in the next budget year might be a little bit out of sync with reality. Consider this statement, which is written in the same budget plan. Quote, tourism expenditures represent the largest share of the sources of funds flowing into the Guam economy. Tourism sales have been estimated by Tourism Economics to be $1.8 billion in 2016. $1.8 billion bucks. The tourism industry this fiscal year will continue to see a dramatic drop, if not near collapse, in visitors' arrivals. Instead of seeing more than 1.6 million tourists in a year, who are the source of that 1.8 million bucks, the tourism industry's projection is that total arrivals will only reach 80,000 for this whole budget year. So if you're bringing in $1.8 billion and you could have a budget of close to a billion, and then you drop from 1.8, as you were 1.6 million down to 80,000. If you interpolate, that suggests that all you're going to be collecting are nickels and dimes instead of dollars and hundreds of dollars, etc. Fiscal 2020 begins in October. It's highly unlikely that tourist arrivals will recover that quickly. With this in mind, the governor's budget plan is far from conservative. With a lot of retail stores, hotels, restaurants, and other businesses still reeling from the pandemic shutdowns and a lack of tourists, GovGuam's estimate for the projected collection of business privilege tax remains high. In this proposed budget, the amount of projected business privilege tax collection is $295 million. Well, a lot of businesses have not returned to, they're using the word normalcy, of course. I'll correct it for you, Guam Daily Post, have not returned to normality, and some are shut down for good. GovGuam only expects a mere $5 million decrease in the business privilege tax revenue compared to the pre-pandemic level of $300 million in a year. That's just amazing. It's only going to drop $5 million. So other than the businesses that pay gross receipts tax, who is going to be paying this business privilege tax? Wow. While GovGuam expects more federal funds to prop up the local government, it's not a guarantee the level of funding will be provided directly to GovGuam will be enough to offset what tourism will not recoup in fiscal 2022. GovGuam still plans on spending about $927 million overall, of which $812 million will be in the collection of local taxes and fees. It looks like GovGuam has chosen not to confront the possibility of severe cash shortfalls head on. No sense worried about it. We'll just go ahead and adopt the budget, and when we run short of money, what was it that Scarlett said to Rhett? Gone with the wind?
I know Rhett said to Scarlett.
Yeah, we all remember what Rhett said to Scarlett, but...
I'll never grow hungry again. That's the only I remember she said.
Well, as Rhett was on his way out, Scarlett said, Rhett, don't leave me. Where shall I go? What shall I do? And that's when Rhett came out with his famous line. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. This in 1938 was shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Such language was shocking. Yeah. So I guess that's what we're going to do. We're just going to pull a Scarlett O'Hara. And the other famous line was, oh, I know. I'll think about that tomorrow. That'll be Lou's.
That's the one, yeah.
That'll be the one, right? Oh, I know. I'll think about that tomorrow.
Got a couple of drapes she can borrow.
Okay, so pretty good editorial here today, Post. Good enough to get the coveted blue star. And that takes the Post up to 239. To the Daily News is 57. Maybe I should give Mr. Akimoto a
honorable mention.
Yeah, honorable, close but no cigar. Okay, so from there, we go to the card. A really short card today. I'm not going to talk anymore about the Daily News and what they think is cool about breaking the record for the lowest temperature on Guam. I noticed that a couple of the news outlets actually gave you the right news, that the record for January 30 was 69, but it was not the all-time record for Guam. Nice try, Daily News. And then I'm going to pick up with Vanessa Williams, Esquire, and Jane Flores telling us about the 36th Guam legislature. And then I've got Talina takes on the port. She's going to do some investigations at the port, and there's some really interesting dynamics involved there. And then I'm back to Joe Biden seeking to enlist George Orwell in the Army. So starting out with Williams and Flores versus the legislature, I think everybody knows that Vanessa Williams is local counsel for a couple of an out-of-town Jasper in a pinchback suit. If you happen to see the movie called The Music Man. Yeah. That's the guy who came into River City, and he was going to corrupt the youth with pool. An out-of-town Jasper in a pinchback suit.
What was that? That process he says you just have to think. I can't.
In order to play a musical instrument, yeah.
Just think it.
Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, there's an out-of-town Jasper in a pinchback suit who's representing the ACLU. Vanessa Williams is local counsel, and let's check in with the Law and Order notebooks here. Only lawyers who are admitted to practice in Guam can appear in the courts of Guam, in the District Court and the Superior Court and the Supreme Court. If a lawyer, an out-of-town Jasper in a pinchback suit comes into town and he represents someone from parts unknown and he wants to practice in our courts, he can, but he has to be admitted pro hac vice for this case only. And in order to be admitted pro hac vice, he must have a local lawyer move his admission. And as a general principle, the person who moves the admission of the out-of-town Jasper in the pinchback suit, who moves his pro hac vice admission, usually stays on as co-counsel. So I suspect that's what Vanessa Williams is doing in this case. Her quotes lead us to believe, though, that her function is more than just as a horse holder. She seems to be committed to the cause that the ACLU suit advances. But this is what co-counsel Vanessa Williams said. Now patients have no choice but to go off island, if they want an abortion, to go off island, which most can't afford. It's not like they're just being inconvenienced. This has become impossible, and it's become a ban on their constitutional rights to seek this care. Well, I pulled on my Constitution, and I couldn't find that ban in there. And the two plaintiffs, a couple of really great names for plaintiffs. I've got their names here somewhere. Yeah, really great names for names you can really warm up to. One is Bliss Kaneshiro, nothing but bliss. And the other one is Shandini Radu. So they're the two plaintiffs represented by the out-of-town Jasper. Well, maybe an out-of-town Jasper in a pinchback skirt. Her name is Alexa Colby Molinas. Yeah. The only Colby I ever heard of before this was Cheese. But anyhow, that's her name. The Hawaii doctors are seeking a preliminary injunction from the court that would allow them to counsel patients online on medication abortions or abortion pills. Because of certain FDA rules, you have to be an authorized prescriber to prescribe it, which the doctors in Hawaii are, she said. That would be Molinas. And as far as we know, there are no authorized prescribers of that medication in Guam. And again, that's part of the lack of access. And then the article kind of skips a beat and talks about the law can be updated by the legislature to accommodate medical and technological advancements. But Williams says she's got no indication that will happen. In this last election, I had the opportunity to ask candidates this question. If they would be elected, would they help amend or revise laws that would or are medically unnecessary in restricting access to abortion And I can tell you, I don't think there was one elected senator who opted to answer the question or said they would do so. Okay, so that's kind of brings you up to date on this. And then I've got an article from the Daily News entitled Guam Senators Against Amending Law to Allow Telemedicine Medication Abortion. Following a lawsuit brought by the American Civil Liberties Union challenging Guam's abortion laws, 6 senators said they don't support a change in the law that will allow telemedicine medication abortion. Hawaii doctors Shinhini Redu and Bliss Kaneshiro, represented by the ACLU, and Guam attorney Vanessa Williams, sued government of Guam officials, stating Guam's laws are out of date and effectively function as an abortion ban. Since 2018, no local doctors have provided abortion services after the last doctor to do so retired. Without a local doctor to provide abortion services, Hawaii is the nearest U.S. location where a woman can get a legal abortion. The Hawaii doctors said in their lawsuit that since 2018, they and their colleagues have seen 5 to 10 Guam patients for abortion services. The Hawaii doctors stated in their lawsuit that telemedicine medication abortion could be available to Guam residents if not for the laws here that require abortions to be performed in a clinic and that information be provided in person to patients. The Daily News asked all of the senators if they support a change in the law to allow telemedicine medication abortions. The newspaper also asked if senators would introduce legislation that would change the laws to allow telemedicine medication abortion services. 6 of the 15 senators replied to the newspaper's question. So what does that tell us about the other 9? They're pro-abortion? Does it tell us they're neither pro nor anti-abortion? They're just chicken? That they're one or the other, but in their case, they think discretion is the better part of valor, and if they can get away with not speaking on the question, much, much safer, regardless of which side they come down on. Now, what was the name of the group that did the abortion poll, Tony? Jose?
Esperanza, I believe.
Yeah, Esperanza did an abortion poll, and not everyone answered, but all of the all the Republican candidates said they were against abortion, and 7 of them got elected. So taking a look at those who said that they would not, you got Frank Blas Jr. He said he would not support changing the law and nor would he introduce a measure to change the abortion laws. When asked what he thought of the fact that the doctor hasn't provided legal abortions on the island for over 2 years, Blas said, I'm more concerned that we've not been able to secure the full-time services of a pathologist. We should focus. Didn't Jane Flores go out looking for a pathologist at one time? No. It was not a pathologist. It was an abortionist.
That's it.
Both words ended in the same syllable. Yeah. All right, let me take a short break here, and I'll come right back to this.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations. Check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu.
Want to win $100? Join the Guam Visitors Bureau's Protect Guam campaign series to show how you're helping our island in the fight against COVID-19. There are 2 ways to win. Upload your photos or videos to visitguam.com, or share on social media how you're wearing your mask, showcasing Guam heroes, or staying active and healthy with the Protect Guam hashtag. Don't forget to download the Guam COVID Alert app. Let's protect and support each other through these tough times. For a chance to win $100, check out visitguam.com.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So continuing on with Frank Bloss's quote, he said, we should focus on trying to find out why people have died so others can live, rather than spending taxpayers' money to end a defenseless and innocent life. Senator Jose Pido Terlahi said we should not have abortions over Zoom. Where is the sanctity in that? And I don't know if I would attach the word sanctity to what's going on here, but if it's really important, is it the kind of thing you want to do by internet from a place that's 3,300 miles away? It doesn't seem appropriate to do it that way. Chris Duenas, a Republican, was against changing the law and wouldn't introduce a measure to change the law. Chris said, I'm disappointed and appalled that the ACLU ignores the life of the unborn child and having the right to live. When asked what he thinks about the fact that there hasn't been a doctor here to provide legal abortions for over 2 years, Duenas replied, I'm thankful that no abortion doctor has been on Guam. And interesting, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, I talked about that before. I used to have a great admiration for the American Civil Liberties Union. I think when I was in law school, all of the law students did. They were out there defending free speech and even draft dodgers and defending really unpopular causes, right? Well, here we went through a huge deprivation of our liberty and our freedoms, all in the name of Wuhan virus. And what was the ACLU's position on that? Nothing, not a drop. They didn't care. They couldn't care less. Going back to Chris again, when asked what he thinks about. As you were, let's go to James Moylan, a Republican, who said, as someone with a pro-life beliefs, I would not support or introduce any measure which provides greater access to or promotes abortions. Senator Talina Nelson, a Democrat, also said she wouldn't support or introduce a measure to allow telemedicine medical abortions. Access to women's health care is important and a valid concern. Talina. However, there are many issues plaguing our healthcare system and providers that require prioritization. Of course, the most dire of these issues has been addressing the Wuhan virus pandemic and the failing infrastructure of Guam Memorial Hospital. Nelson added that the American College of Pediatricians stated that human life begins at conception. With this, I stand alongside millions of concerned families worldwide who believe in protecting unborn children and protecting the sanctity of life, Nelson said. Amanda Shelton, a Democrat, said she wouldn't support or introduce legislation to change the abortion laws. Our role as government leaders is to defend the weak and vulnerable. I support protecting life from conception and throughout every stage by promoting social programs and resources that empower women, ensure healthy pregnancies and loving homes, end poverty, and stop the epidemic of sexual violence towards women. Just stopping abortion would be good. If you could just do that, Amanda. Now we get to the punchline here. Bureau of Women's Affairs Director Jane Flores. How do you pronounce Bureau of Women's Affairs, Tony?
I might change it a little bit.
Okay.
And call it BSWA.
That sounds French. You might need to get Frenchie's permission on that one.
Bureau of Selective Women's Affairs.
Selective Women's Affairs. Jane Flores encouraged senators to look at updating the law to allow for telemedicine to be available not just for abortions, but also for other medical procedures. Good, Jane. A little straw man there, right? A little diversion. Let's not talk about abortions.
Sounds like Planned Parenthood.
Let's talk about telemedicine. Yeah. I would encourage our senators to bring our laws up to a level that modern medicine is able to provide with regards to telemedicine, Flores said. Oh, boy. Flores in 2019 was tasked with researching options for abortion providers after Governor Leon Guerrero said officials on Guam were looking to recruit doctors to come to the island and establish clinics. Leon Guerrero has said she is pro-choice. She's more than said it. She's demonstrated it time and again. Here's a quote from Governor Leon Guerrero. Guam's a U.S. territory, and we have to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the right of reproductive choice. Oh, this is a quote from Flores. If we have local laws that infringe on that right, we think it's good that the ACLU is pointing that out. We thank them for doing that, and we support the right to rectify the situation so that women of Guam have access to the advances that modern medicine has made with regard to reproductive choice, including telemedicine. So Flores thinks it's good that the ACLU came out here, sued our Attorney General, Philip Flores, and all of the folks on the Board of Medical Examiners, et cetera. Some doctors, et cetera, there are all defendants in this lawsuit. Flores thinks that's good. If we have local laws that infringe on that right, we think it's good that the ACLU is pointing that out.
She didn't seem surprised they were.
No. We thank them for doing that, and we support the right to rectify the situation. So maybe, Jane, you could sign up as a co-plaintiff in this lawsuit. Flores said while they would like reproductive choice available for residents, that's not something that the government can provide. Wow. What kind of Democrat is that? I mean, that's just wrong on two counts if you're a Democrat. First of all, if you're a Democrat, there isn't anything that the government can't provide and shouldn't provide, because after all, that's what government is for.
Well, we are wearing masks these days.
Yeah, exactly. And second, it's wrong for a Democrat to say that, because you can't be a Democrat unless you're pro-abortion. So anything that advances pro-abortion is what Democrats want. So what did she say again? She said, Flores said, while they would like reproductive choice available for residents, that's something that the government can provide. That's not something the government can provide. That has to come from the private sector, from doctors and the private sector, Flores said. Wow. The lawsuit states there are two primary methods of abortion: medication abortion and procedural abortion. Procedural abortion in the first trimester and early weeks of the second trimester involves use of a suction to empty the uterus and is often referred to as aspiration abortion.
They left the part out.
Uh-huh.
The cartilage part.
Okay.
The part where they remove limb to limb.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's an important part to remember there.
Yeah, and then the suction comes after that, huh? Okay. And then after 14 to 60, it's the dilation and evacuation method is used, the lawsuit stated. These are just procedures, dilation, evacuation, suction, it's just terms, With medication abortion, a person is administered medication to induce an abortion up to 9 weeks gestation, according to CDC. Now, I know a little bit about this from having watched the movie Unplanned. So when the woman takes 2 pills, the first pill kills the baby. That's what the first pill does. And then the second pill causes the evacuation of the baby. So first you kill the baby, and then you evacuate it with a medication abortion. The lawsuit states the FDA generally requires the medication mifepristone to be dispensed in person at a medical office. So this is not like an aspirin or something like that. This is something that's going to kill a living human being inside a mother's body. And the FDA says that really should be done in a medical office, clinic, or hospital, rather than a pharmacy. Well, what would be wrong with doing it in a pharmacy? You go into the pharmacy and you say, I've had a little problem with my stomach, so I'd like some Tums. And you got any cough drops there? Oh, yeah, and by the way, I'm pregnant. Can you give me some of that mifepristone? You just buy it in the drugstore, when you go in to buy a newspaper or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. At issue are Guam's laws that specify abortions be, quote, performed by a doctor in a clinical setting, and that information about abortions be provided in person to patients. The term perform isn't defined in the case of medication abortions. The medicine is self-administered, and the pregnancy doesn't pass in a clinical setting rather than at home or in another place the patient chooses, the lawsuit stated. Because of these statutory barriers, absent intervention from this court, plaintiffs cannot provide patients in Guam with medication using abortion using telemedicine. So I have an idea, Tony. Instead of doing this telemedicine and all that stuff, maybe we could sell this First of all, you ought to have a name that people can pronounce. Mifepristone.
Sounds a lot like Miss Festo.
It does. So maybe the mifepristone could be sold in vending machines. So instead of going through all of this trouble, you just go to your local vending machine, stick your credit card in there, punch up the number of abortions that you want, and away you go.
I say make it a skills test, like the little claw.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah.
That would be appropriate.
Yeah, that'd be another way of going about it. Well, that kind of takes us up to date here on Jane Flores and abortion. I notice I got a couple of folks in the green room here, and we're coming close to a break, so let me just see how we're going to time this. I've got R. Carl and Frenchie. So I think I'd better go to the break first before I put these two titans on the line.
Eivetsem krerevetter COVID-19 rettuurun irisits ekkio ravukora miats job irisin. Igen mi be fi worunga borsawai kose bocher koponnoborong neibum. Inke kai kie gauru kewe sinerevetter kose bocher muttir köri uriget eu rafrobwerisuk. Kosabuiti-utiro toriom ka semmoriro ibe kopop köri ekkererier ernisire semmun. Kose bocher siboturu ekkio ravukora mekkio irmia pagapang iri semmun. Ato waware fidong riakots boru raibe pot naworong neibum ike pure miwe fiop sawai. Muttir nageo tessi COVID-19 ike pure mi churriebe mi semmun. Amuttir ne förie kiernis mi burne goruk pangiri baraban arabas medisin. Esirisin afitto siriman yelu At the office in Micronesian Resource Center, Miekkiu Estaser City Joyce Broadcasting. Kiriso Zabur.
Introducing the fastest growing virtual kitchen on Guam. Ghost Table is a secret professional food prep and cooking facility set up for delivery-only meals. The menu is a collaboration of Guam chefs with a passion for creating great-tasting food. Choose from the Westside Hawaiian Grinds, 671 Burger, Side Street Tacos and Burritos, and Osaka Stop. Search for Ghost Table on Grab and Grub to check out the menu and to place your order. Satisfaction guaranteed, exclusively with Grab and Grub.
Okay, so we've got a couple of heavyweights here in the green room. We've got, first of all, I hope Frenchie is safe in there because he's in the green room with the most dangerous man in the room. Frenchie can handle himself. He'll be okay. Right, Carl?
Oh, yeah. He's pretty dangerous, too. Bob, maybe you could remind me, what's the name of that guy that I think it was the early 1900s or late 1800s? He was predicting that there was going to be widespread starvation and, mass starvation on the planet, and it was the end of the world was coming. All our resources were going to be depleted. Remember the name of that guy?
It sounds like a name that I can give you, but I think you may be a little off on your dates. Are you talking about Thomas Malthus?
Malthus, yeah. I might be off on the dates, yeah. I was just imagining when he was
Thomas Malthus said that the population grows at a geometric rate, while the ability to produce food only grows at an arithmetic rate. Therefore, there isn't going to be enough food around to feed everybody.
Yeah, and the thing he didn't account for was that science isn't static. It's not standing still. It's constantly discovering new ways to grow food, more efficient ways, more effective ways. So his predictions...
Something else he didn't account for was what we're now seeing as the demographic winter. That, that people are having fewer and fewer children. There's a so-called replacement rate of about 2.2 children. So if a country is to maintain its population, fertile women have to have about 2.2 children. Otherwise, the population declines. Very, very few Western countries are at that 2.2 figure, and they're looking at what's called demographic winter. Even Japan, the population grows older, the number of births decreases, and it causes all kinds of dislocations because retirement plans are based on the idea that there will always be young folks coming along to pay into the plan to support the old folks. But when you get too many old folks and not enough youngsters, it doesn't work out very well.
Yeah, that's very true. There was an organization that I remember reading about many years ago that they had picked out a sweet spot where the population would be just right, not too many and not too few. It's about 500 million, and we're at, I think, pretty close to 8 billion now. So a lot of people are going to have to die before the elites are satisfied with.
Well, and again, Thomas Malthus didn't take into consideration the culture of death, which is descending upon us now in the last century and this century, where it is societally acceptable to kill a child in the womb. And then if you look at some of the European countries, like the Netherlands, for instance, they've embraced euthanasia. Folks, somebody gets too old, maintenance costs are too high, well, maybe 75 years is enough for anybody. So we're working against ourselves as far as the demographic winter is concerned. But I suppose Thomas Malthus, may he rest in peace, is saying, well, finally they're doing something about my predictions.
Yeah, and I think there are people that look on abortion as a way to reach that at least get closer to that sweet spot, that utopia where, we'll be in.
I'm not going to mention Jeffrey Sachs's name, but I think you know who I'm talking about. Jeffrey Sachs, Bill Gates, and that Davos group, the Reset group. We've got to limit the number of people on the Earth to save the Earth.
Don't mention eugenics either.
Yeah, the founder of Planned Parenthood, she was a
Margaret Sanger.
Firm believer in eugenics, and she really believed in culling the world population of people who were of color. She really was a strong believer of that, and they Planned Parenthood has distanced themselves from her recently.
Well, from her identity, but not from her idea, because
just her statues.
Yeah, they're still aborting by far. Aborting a whole lot more African American babies than other kinds of babies.
Yeah, I think it's the last I saw an article was about over 22 million. There are only about, I believe, 44, 45 million African Americans in America, according to one set of figures I saw. So that's pretty huge. I mean, that's really something. You're really causing tremendous damage to a group of people based on their skin color, and where is that not racist? It's really terrible.
It would be racist to deny women of color access to abortion, Carl. You remember, no matter what it is, no matter what it looks like, you have to turn it inside out to understand its true nature. Inside out, upside down, backwards, whatever, because we've adopted the Orwellian approach to life. Lies are truth, and evil is good, and so on.
Yes, yeah, Orwell was very prophetic. And just one other quick point I wanted to bring up. I worked as a social worker for a while, about a year, when I got out of college, and I saw up close people who desperately wanted to adopt, either relatives or just any young kid. They just wanted a child in their life. So I wish there was a way that the government could make it a little bit easier, maybe a little less expensive to adopt, because I know it's not a cheap process. And you mentioned that on Guam there's about a 5-year waiting period, which is pretty astonishing.
Yeah, I think Tim brought that to our attention in one of his calls.
I saw a video one time of a young man that had taken the time and effort to track down his biological mother. He was adopted. And when they met, she was in tears because she felt so terrible, about what she'd done. And he assured her, he said the reason why he wanted to contact her is to thank her profusely, because he had grown up in a very loving family. He had a very happy and a wonderful life. And he just wanted to thank his biological mom for making a choice that was really hard. It was tremendously hard to go through 9 months. I watched my wife give birth to 3 or 4 children, and it's extremely hard. If men had to give birth, there'd be a lot more single-child families in this world. It is just astonishing. But anyway, I just wish there was a way that they could fund adoption and not fund so much these abortion industrial complexes such as Planned Parenthood that are making millions upon millions of dollars. And on top of that, government is plopping even more millions.
But Carl, yesterday I gave my explanation why a fully functioning, easily accessed adoption system wouldn't work for the left.
Why is that?
Because it's not about the baby, it's about the woman. And it's the woman's right to choose, it's woman's reproductive health, and it's about women not wanting to undergo the burden of pregnancy because it'll interfere with their career. Sometimes it'll interfere with their marriage. It's just something that they don't want to have to deal with, or something they feel like they shouldn't have to deal with if they don't want to. So carrying the child to term really wouldn't be satisfactory at all for the real pro-abort.
Well, every obstacle they place in the way, or every hardship they place in the way of adoption, just means that many more making the decision that it's just, I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to take this other pathway. I just wish there was a way it could be done, but, I don't know. Anyway, I'll let Frenchie chime in. Always interested in what he has to say. Thank you for letting me.
Okay, Carl, good talking to you. And let's see, I've got another occupant here in the green room. It's John somebody. Anyhow, I'll take Frenchie first, and Frenchie, we're only going to have 5 minutes here, so we may allow you to go beyond the break here, and then John will get to you right after Frenchie.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Yeah. Malthus was an interesting guy, but you forgot with the eugenics. You forgot to talk about Chesterton, and then of course one of Orwell's good buddy, which was Aldous Huxley, which actually has a huge influence in what is happening right now with euthanasia, surrogate mothers, the destruction of fatherhood, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, to me, telemedicine is a little bit the equivalent of vote by mail. It's one of those tricks to push an hidden agenda. I had a joke for you, by the way, part of that series that you had. Don't you find it strange that in the drive-through ATM they have Braille?
That's good, Frenchie. The next time drive-through Jack calls, I'll see what his take is on that.
On that, yeah. So anyway, this was kind of interesting. I've been listening to your expose on this lawsuit, but another thing that I think kind of been under the radar is this one of President Biden did on his second day in office. He reordered U.S. troops inside Syria, and it looks like he is dead set to finish the regime change in Syria, which is one of the most dangerous, stupid military adventure that we could get into. I think we should be worried about it here on Guam, since we have so many sons and daughters of Guam that are in the military, and we have a man who is now president that has not been right on any foreign issue in the last 48 years of his career, and that's not me saying it, but the former head of the CIA. And it looks very, very dangerous. I understand that El-Assad is not a very nice guy. I don't think anybody pretended he ever was. But, that regime change business is very dangerous. And we've seen from the Senate Intelligence Committee latest report, which unfortunately was released in late November, so not many people paid attention to it, that the Obama administration was heavily involved in the financing and the arming of al-Nusra. And al-Nusra was one of those so-called freedom fighters in Syria, but they happened to be the same people that were called Al-Qaeda. So we've done a lot of stupid things under the Obama administration. We end up 4 years of a presidency that didn't take us into any war. President Trump didn't use drones to assassinate people overseas. unlike Obama, who killed several thousand people that way, including U.S. citizens, and without court orders. And so now we have Biden, who wants to restart the...
Hey, Frenchie, it's time for the big halftime show. So if you want to come on after the halftime show, just hang on and we'll give you a few minutes after the halftime show, okay?
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Frenchie.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Paving the fast track to stimulus. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Congressional Democrats laying the groundwork to pass a coronavirus relief package without Republican support.
Speaker Pelosi and I will file a joint budget resolution for the fiscal year 2021, totaling $1.9 trillion, which is the first step in giving Congress an additional legislative tool to quickly pass the COVID relief legislation.
Senate Majority Leader Schumer, the budget reconciliation maneuver would mean Senate Republicans could not block the bill with a filibuster. 10 GOP senators met with the president Monday evening to press their case for a less expensive, more targeted bill.
It was a very good exchange of views. I wouldn't say that we came together on a package tonight. No one expected that in a 2-hour meeting. But what we did agree to do is to follow up and talk further.
Maine Senator Susan Collins, the Northeast, starting to dig out. For more than a foot of snow, 16 inches in the heart of New York City, 25 inches in some spots in northwest New Jersey. The storm is expected to pummel the New England states through the day on Wednesday. The storm forcing postponement of vaccination events in New York and Connecticut, but not in Boston.
The weather was dismal, but some people found a reason to be excited after getting their first dose of vaccine. It was the first day of mass vaccinations at Fenway Park as a major winter storm tried to throw a change-up.
We had a little conflict of come early, don't come early, so we just came early.
The health group running the site added extra employees, found more space inside to keep people out of the weather, and opened earlier to beat the storm.
Reporter Robert Golston of Fox affiliate WFXT in Boston. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglonia from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Late word from Hollywood. According to the New York Times, actor Hal Holbrook has died. He was 95. Chicago's Mayor Lori Lightfoot has ordered a 48-hour cooling-off period between the city's school district and its teachers' union. Teachers defied an order to return to their schools in person Monday over coronavirus fears. They'd been told they'd be locked out of the online learning system if they didn't show up. But the mayor says for the next 2 days at least, online learning will continue, even though the school district says many students have simply stopped logging in. Some Wisconsin school teachers suspended over a controversial lesson plan.
Several Sun Prairie, Wisconsin teachers are on administrative leave after a 6th grade virtual classroom lesson, which included questions about how to treat a slave who disrespects their master. Officials in the school district just outside of Madison called the incident a grave error in judgment and offering an apology to students and parents. The lesson was reported to school authorities by a parent who says their child said he was uncomfortable with the assignment on ancient Mesopotamia. The school district says the lesson was not part of its curriculum and not consistent with equity and cultural responsiveness. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
A plan to delay and shorten the Major League Baseball season again has been rejected by the Players Union.
Play ball with no delays. Major League Baseball and its players agree on an on-time start to spring training and the regular season after the players rejected MLB's plan to delay reporting by more than a month because of the pandemic. The teams proposed that the start of spring training be pushed back from February 17th to March 22nd, that opening day be delayed from April 1st to April 28th, and that each team's schedule be cut from 162 games to 154. Now, the original plan will be in effect. It's a far cry from 2020, when MLB went ahead with a 60-game schedule, and the two sides reached a separate agreement to expand last year's playoffs to 16 teams. Sal Giangrasso, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Introducing the fastest growing virtual kitchen on Guam. Ghost Table is a secret professional food prep and cooking facility set up for delivery-only meals. The menu is a collaboration of Guam chefs with a passion for creating great-tasting food. Choose from the Westside Hawaiian Grinds, 671 Burger, Side Street Tacos and Burritos, and Osaka Stop. Search for Ghost Table on Grab and Grub to check out the menu and to place your order. Satisfaction guaranteed. Exclusively with Grab and Grub.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Mana Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mana Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today, like listen to us, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
It's always inspiring, isn't it, Frenchie?
Very much so, very much so. Yeah, and we need inspiration right now.
You know, if I could get around the copyright prohibitions here, I'll see if we can't play the Marseillaise in your honor when you call. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Marseillaise is not really my song, but I will explain you why another time.
Okay. Probably has something to do with Catalonian nationalism, right, Frenchie?
No, it's more about the genocide of the Catholics during the Revolution.
Oh.
How about La Vie en Rose?
La Vie en Rose, no, if you want to go Piaf, I would go Je ne regrette rien, which means I do not regret anything.
Yeah, I like La Vie en Rose better. It's easier to say.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
So were you going to tell us more about abortion and
Well, you know what, we have a government here on Guam that is happy and encouraging lawsuit against their own administration to have more easily accessible abortion with telemedicine. We have a national government that is not only opening our borders, encouraging euthanasia, but also now is looking at they are going to go back to those endless war after 4 years of quiet. So I'm a little worried about that because I'm not a fighting age anymore, but I know we have a lot of young people from Guam that are in the military, and I don't want to see them being sent overseas for useless wars, which have the United States have no interest into, but is rather the interest of a very little minority that wants to push some strange agenda. To remind people, Syria is a mosaic of ethnicity and religion. The government over there is not very democratic, but it's basically based on tribe, just like in Iraq. And while we are saying that we want to reopen negotiation with Iran and reopen negotiation for the SALT treaty with Russia, at the same time, it looks like we're going to restart our regime change in Syria. And this buildup of U.S. troops in Syria is not a very good omen. It looks like we are going into something that is a lot more dangerous than it was under Obama, because at least Obama knew where the brakes were. And he actually applied the brakes when he did this famous line in the sand, but when it was crossed, he never actually used it. The problem with Biden is that he either doesn't know or totally forgot where the brakes are, and Harris has absolutely no clue what a brake looks like. So we are going into a very dangerous period. We're already being challenged by the Chinese in Burma. The military in Burma is backed by the CCP, and they just did a coup. And right now there is what you could say lukewarm reaction from the Biden administration. And so here we are. We might start another war where we're going to have fundamentalist Muslim going back and threatening Europe and the United States. And we're talking about Navalny, and we're covering the arrest of Navalny in Russia, but we don't talk about the bioethic law in France, where we saw thousands of protesters in hundreds of different locations being assaulted by the police. And they are mostly young families with young children demonstrating peacefully, and they are being beaten with truncheons, gas, and everything in the book. And of course, no thing, because they are Catholic demonstrators, so they don't like it. And so we have eugenicists in power right now. We have open border. And we have the Muslim declaring the war of the womb, which ties in with abortion, because Muslims think that Western women are not fertile, and the ones that are being abort their babies, while a Muslim woman has on an average 5 or 6 kids. So they think they can win that war of conquest that way. So right now, we have a lot of things to be watchful for. And there is, of course, the war against fatherhood, and by destroying fathers, by pushing for that surrogate mother, and where basically you don't need to have a father, you can just get sperm from a bank, and then that's it. And, we're denying the fact that there are mothers and fathers in school. And then they want us to be brothers. How can you be brothers when you don't have mothers and fathers? That's all what I have to say for today. Thank you.
Well, as far as brothers are concerned, you don't necessarily have to be a man to be somebody's brother either, do you, Frenchie?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this brave
Yeah.
new world in which we live.
I don't know if he's brave or crazy.
Okay, well, thanks for calling, Frenchie. Good talking to you.
I'm waiting to listen to John.
Okay, well, John rang off to call back after the halftime show, so this would be a really good time for you to chime in here, John. Before I go on to the next item on the card, if you want to call in, and we'd be glad to have you on the air talking to our international radio listening audience. I'll tell you what, just while we're waiting for a second for John, I'm just going to go through the Facebook instead of starting the next item on the card. Let's see, Perlita Delamar Garcia is here, and we have a gray out online, varying shades of gray because Walter Gray Jr. is here. And Lynn McAfee, one of our regulars, and Ken Augustine, I guess in response to my return to the dialogue from Gone with the Wind, Ken Augustine says, frankly, Lou doesn't give a damn. Good call. Good call. And Sherry Ariarte, Pam Duvall, and Lynn McAfee makes an interesting point. She says, seems to me sex is part of the reproductive choice. Maybe that's the place to start the I don't want a kid conversation. Your right to choice starts at copulation. The baby's right to life starts at conception. That's an interesting way of phrasing it.
Some good alliteration there.
Yeah. And let's see, I guess that's all I got here. So, John, I wish you'd call, but I'm going to have to go on to Nelson versus the Port here, next item on the card. The oversight chair of the Port Authority is diving into the agency's hiring practices, but she's not only interested in looking into the current administration's hiring practices, but apparently that of the agency's predecessor, who also is one of her colleagues in the 36th Guam legislature. And then a quote from Senator Brown. I don't know why they picked the particular dates they have, Senator Joanne Brown said. I don't know why they didn't go back to 2010, 2011, 1550. Port Oversight Chair Senator Talina Nelson is looking into Port GM Rory Respicio's hiring practice. According to a letter from Nelson to the Civil Service Commission, she wants a post-audit of the hiring practices of employees with any criminal history hired by the port from fiscal years 2017 to 2020. That would cover a portion of the time when Senator Brown was the port's general manager. Certainly for me, if they have a specific reason as to why I've heard some comments being made that there may have been individuals hired, I hope they can reference official misconduct if that's what they're looking at, Brown said. But with regards to that particular issue, I certainly would have knowingly hired anyone that had a questionable history. I think she means would not have. Okay, Brown said to her knowledge, she did not hire anyone with a criminal record during her tenure. She does recall, however, terminating a longtime employee after it was brought to her attention that he had a felony conviction. She clarified that this particular employee was at the port years before she was the general manager. Quote, they can certainly look and they're welcome to do, Brown said. So I certainly stand by my position as general manager and all my actions during my time there. I mean, I had zero tolerance for drugs. Nelson's call for the post-audit follows concerns raised about hiring of former Department of Corrections officer Frankie Rosalind, as program coordinator 2 at the port. In 2019, he pled guilty to official misconduct as a misdemeanor for his role in the 2017 drug conspiracy case at the prison. Rosalind is the boyfriend of the lieutenant governor's sister. After the hiring was brought to light, Brown introduced Bill 37, which would bar anyone convicted of official misconduct for working for the government of Guam. The Republican lawmaker has picked up support from her colleague James Moylan, who is a co-signer. And another quote for Brown: "That's just wrong, and for Moylan. That's just wrong, and I applaud Senator Brown for pointing this out and finding the loophole, especially now that we have a pandemic. We have over 27,000 people unemployed, lost wages, who are looking to be gainfully employed one day, and we're so fortunate for the government of Guam to maintain their employment during this pandemic when so many others are not able to. As Senator Brown has said, we as government employees, we had to take its responsibilities, and the people are really counting on us to make things right for them." The bill has been referred to a committee, but a public hearing has not yet been scheduled. In the meantime, port officials return for a virtual hearing next Tuesday at 9 a.m. on their drug-free workplace program policy, followed by an oversight hearing at 10 a.m. on agency recruitment and hiring practices. As far as why Nelson is looking into the hiring practices of Brown, when she was at the port, she responded, "We want to see if there's consistency between the practices of different administrations that have changed, and that all actions they've taken are within the laws of Guam." Prior to Brown serving at the port, Senator Mary Torres was the general manager. However, her hiring practices are not being looked into. So let's look at the dynamics of what's going on here. We have two former directors of the port serving as senators in the 36th Guam legislature. One, Joanne Brown, retired after 6 years. The other one, Mary Torres, was fired. And according to what I've read in the paper, the reason that she was fired was because she did not take appropriate action in what we'll refer to as the Port 7 matter, which began when Bernadette Stern-Mano filed a claim for workman's compensation. This was in the news for a long, long period of time. There were civil service cases, Supreme Court cases, Superior Court cases, Supreme Court cases, and finally, when Rory came in, he made it no secret that he wanted to settle those cases, and he did. Settled, I think, all of them but one case by paying out money to the people who'd been fired. So you've got Brown, who came on board at the very beginning of the Port 7. After Mary Torres was fired, Anisha Terlahi was the acting director of the port. Anisha actually signed some, if not all, of the papers to terminate the Port 7, the adverse actions, and Brown came on board to sign the final notices of adverse action. So Mary Torres has aligned herself publicly with the Port 7, saying they got a raw deal, and I'm really glad they finally got justice. So one has to wonder, you know, how Mary Torres, who got fired, what her relationship is with Joanne Brown, who was part of the firing, not Mary Torres's firing, but of the Port 7. So when Frankie Rosalind was hired by the port on probation after having pled guilty to official misconduct as part of a drug deal at the Department of Corrections, Brown came along and said, I'm introducing a bill. We don't need anybody who's been convicted of official misconduct to ever be hired at the port. Rory, in the meantime, comes out and kind of paints himself as Mr. Merciful here in this whole deal, saying, well, yeah, I hired Frankie Rosalind because I just don't think it's right to just throw somebody away who made one mistake. And then he said, and Rosalind did everything right. He filled out the papers, he applied for the position, he took for the interview, and he was hired. And I hired him, but he was hired. And then the lieutenant governor got involved too here because the lieutenant governor's sister is the boyfriend of Frankie Rosalind. And the lieutenant governor awkwardly tried to distance himself from Frankie Rosalind, saying, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't even know anything. I didn't even know he applied until after the interview, which means after the interview and before the selection. So there's an awful lot to ponder here, executive, legislative. And then Nelson takes out after another Democrat, Rory Respicio, saying to the Civil Service Commission, do one of your famous post audits. And the post audit worked really well for a guy named Kevin Susuiko, who should never have been hired by the port. He was put in a position for which he wasn't qualified. And later on, the Civil Service Commission, the Supreme Court finally said, you got to put that guy back on the job and give him back pay, even though he never should have had the job in the first place. So, so now Talina wants to invoke that post-audit authority for the Civil Service Commission to go back through and check all the personnel matters at the port. And, of course, Nelson is taking a shot at a brother Democrat. So is she trying to balance this out by saying, I'm not after Rory. I just want to find out what's going on. So I took it back to 2016. That way it's not just Rory, it's Rory and Joanne too. So don't get mad at me, Rory. I'm just doing my job. But then causing me to say, if you're going to do that, why don't you take it back to the Mary Torres issue also? And, if I were to look through my magic political spectrum here that filters out all considerations except politics, I'd say, Mary Torres has been pretty friendly with the Democrats for a Republican. And at the end of the last legislature of the 35th, you'll recall that the then minority leader, a certain Tello Taitigui, I may have to, during the next break, go into the restroom and wash my mouth out with soap because I said her name without her permission. But Tello put out a press release naming the four members of the Republicans as the Republican minority. She did not mention the name of Mary Torres. I don't know why she didn't mention the name of Mary Torres. Did they kick Mary Torres out of the Republican caucus? Did Mary Torres quit? Did Mary pull a Tello and say, you don't have my permission to use my name? But anyhow, when the minority leader says, here are the folks in our caucus, and somebody's name isn't on it, that can't be a typographical error. So again, speculating, did that have anything to do with Mary's apparent friendship with the Democrat Party? Was that why she was at least left off that list of the Republican caucus? And if so, is that the reason that we only go back to 2016? We don't go back far enough to pick up the Mary Camacho administration because one Democrat, one Republican, it balances, that's enough. Get out of my face, Rory, Talina's saying, perhaps. So that was my analysis of Nelson versus the port and the different interplays there. The Brown-Rory interplay, the Brown Talina Nelson interplay, the Brown-Mary Torres interplay. Very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to Joanne Brown's bill. What was the number of it? 37. We'll be following that very closely. Next item on the card, I'm going back to Joe Biden and George Orwell versus the U.S. military. I think it'd be a good time to break for the seventh inning stretch, though.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Seventh inning stretch. Wrigley Field in Chicago, world's most beautiful ballpark. And when I was wandering around Wrigley Field, I got a little note from Jeanette. Jeanette said, "This isn't on the card, but I'd like to talk about EIP payments. Is that okay, Bob?" To which I said, "Of course, Jeanette. If that's what you want, to talk about, fine. We'll talk about EIP payments. So go ahead."
Yes, my question, I called PNC today this afternoon, and my question was, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
My question was, for the EIP, if you got the EIP first, the first stimulus check last year, and, for people that don't pay tax or, on what to register and whatnot. So I asked if we have to re-register again for the second EIP.
Okay.
For the second stimulus checks that are coming out.
And what was the answer?
They'll get back to me. They'll never go back to me at all, and I was waiting. So I guess even they didn't. That was the first question that they questioned themselves to. I got transferred to 3 different people.
Okay, so they're going to get back to you, huh, Jeanette?
Yes. Do you have any questions about it? Or do you have any? Can you answer my question?
No, I can't answer your question about the EIP, Jeanette. I would see an issue if the government is not forthcoming as to what is supposed to be done, by what people are supposed to be doing. But what have the instructions been so far?
No, because I got it last year.
Uh-huh.
I got it last year, and so because the new second. Do we have to re-register for whatever requirements, either you're filing, non-filer, or
Well,
unemployment?
I'll tell you what. I can't answer your question, but I'll give you some advice. Okay.
Okay.
Re-register. From an abundance.
Register again.
Yeah, re-register from an abundance of caution, because if you don't need to, no harm done. If you do need to and you didn't, then you're covered, right?
Yeah, as long as your name is already in the system of Guam. So, that's just my clarification. I just wanted to verify that, knowing that already our name is in the system. We got it last year. Do we have to redo it again? But, they're not giving more information about it. It's just telling you who qualifies, but they didn't say anything about, do you have to re-register again?
I understand.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just a curious person. I'm not,
Yeah.
It would be nice for everybody to get equally, because it's a struggle for this pandemic for everyone.
There you go. Well, that would be my advice, Jeanette, and I wish you the best of luck, and thanks for calling Tall Tales.
Thank you so much, too. I love listening to you, because it's all about true facts you talk about, and putting to you what the point is about.
I try my best. Thanks, Jeanette.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see. I got another caller here in the green room. Who else? Another caller or another Joe?
Yes, on both counts.
Okay. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Hey, there, Bob. So, with regards to the hiring practices and the port, well, obviously it's across the board hiring practices. It happens to be the port that they're touching on because of the issues of the different directors or managers. So I'm kind of wondering. Of course, there's a certain guideline to follow, but each in the case of the port, wouldn't it be fair to say that different managers have different management styles?
Well, Talina said she wants to find out if there's a consistency between administrations.
Well, consistency would be like, okay, did you cut the checks on time? Did you make sure that people got their lunches at the right time, or did they open or close the doors for the building on time? But as far as oh wow, the boss is really nice, I can talk to him, I can joke with him, versus, man, the boss is kind of a hard ass, I can't really say anything, I'm afraid. It doesn't be like management style, right?
No, it is all dealing with employment practices. So they'll be looking at stacks and stacks of papers.
Ooh, exciting stuff. And I think some of the points that were brought up were issues of fairness, but then the counterpoints would be, you're kind of like cheating the system, because you wouldn't have passed if you had not resigned. And but then again, they say, well, maybe they're talking about future, like they got a crystal ball. Like, not only would they have gotten in trouble, they would not have been able to get back on the Ferris wheel, so to speak, or the merry-go-round, because what is it, like a zero tolerance policy?
I beg your pardon?
Is it a zero tolerance policy?
The government of Guam has a policy that the first time around, if the miscreant fesses up, he'll be sent off to some kind of treatment program and he'll be given a second chance, unless he's in certain critical positions. For instance, I suspect the crane operator at the port wouldn't be given a second chance, but a file clerk might. I don't know. That's just my supposition.
And then, of course, they got kind of personal because they were questioning, even before Talina Nelson got involved, wanting to see this. I guess that's part of the question, is the consistency. If whether one of, I think eventually it's going to evolve into, well, one of these port directors was doing their job and one of them wasn't, right? And due to guidelines and due to standard operating procedures, it's not just about being nice or being fair, or maybe that's going to be interpretation, right? Well, you should have, at this point in time, you should have taken this action, right, which you did not, that sort of thing. So I'm kind of curious, would one of these former directors get in trouble But this is politics, though, so...
No, the only time a person who used to have a job can get in trouble is if the job you used to have was president.
Trump, yeah, that's right.
That's the only time. But, you know, let me put it this way, another Joe. I think what they're trying to say, what Talina's looking for, are we treating people who committed the same offense the same way in both administrations? That's what she means by consistency. But, you know, you mentioned something that kind of reminded me, you know, Rory, was it last week that Rory sent out this survey? And I think that the only question that people said that didn't rate him at the high 90s was walking on water. When it came to walking on water, he was only in the high 80s. But
maybe it wasn't the Sabbath.
I haven't seen percentages like that since the last time I looked at the figures from a Latin American election, like Venezuela or something like that. But you mentioned, and he got very, very high grades. And you mentioned something here that I want to talk about for a second, and that you said that, well, so what about the boss? Was the boss really nice? And this is what I want to say. I would be very leery of a boss who's rated really, really nice. Because a boss who's really, really nice, maybe what we're saying is, maybe what the verdict is, this guy's really permissive. Yeah, you know, sir, I've been 10 minutes late ever since you've been director, but I don't want to miss my favorite TV program. That's why I'm always late. Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah. What's the name of the program? As opposed to, well, I hear what you're saying. You're going to have to choose between your TV program and your job. Second one is not nice. Second one's a hard ass. First guy, he's really nice. He understands. So when I see a boss getting these really high ratings, it causes me to say, is this guy a little bit too nice? Is he nice to the point of being permissive? So that, and I've seen this in the government of Guam. Sir, you know, my cousin died. Can I go to the dead? Yeah, go ahead. Do I have to sign leave? No, it's part of the culture. Go to the dead. I've seen that. Now, that's a wonderful thing, you know, and that causes people to say, oh, he or she or they are very compassionate, etc. But it's easy to be compassionate with somebody else's money, another Joe.
I agree with you, Uncle Bob. I'll give you an example of that. I think it's fair to say that the officials on Guam have been pretty nice to these COFA countries because no one has thought to find ways to enforce the agreement, the diplomatic agreement between our national government.
It's not what I'm talking about, another Joe. I'm talking about bosses in the workplace. Right here, it could be a private company, it could be the government of Guam, but for some reason in private companies, that approach doesn't usually last as long as it does in the government of Guam, because in private companies, there's either you're making money or you're going to be looking for a job yourself.
You're right. I did change the subject. I apologize, Uncle Bob.
Yeah.
Would I be permitted to change the subject a little bit?
Not until I'm finished.
Okay, sorry.
Something else here that weighs into this, and I'm not for an awful lot of folks, the word mean is a synonym for strict. That mean and strict mean the same thing. And of course they don't at all. As far as the definitions of those words, they mean different things. So I wouldn't mind anybody that I've ever had the pleasure of working with saying, oh, you know, Klitzkie was strict. I'll sign up for that. Mean? No, that's something totally different.
He was strict, but he wasn't mean.
Exactly, yeah. So I think those two words tend to get merged, and since nobody wants to be mean, the tendency is to not be strict. Because if you're not strict, no one's going to say, hey, he was mean. It's something that occurred to me. What did you want to talk about, another Joe?
So you're right. I did change subject a little bit. Speaking of being mean, right, or nice or mean. You're right. It did make me think of where else are we nice across the board? Where there's this agreement with a diplomatic agreement between our national government and the COFA countries, and it's not being enforced, because if it was, then we would have a lot of cases where hey, you need to be working or at school. Otherwise, you're not supposed to be just going and trying to get these benefits, these entitlement benefits that the Democrats are pushing on people in order to get their votes. So we're being nice because we're not trying to make sure that they're staying by the deal. And I think it's fair to say that
I'm going to jump in again here too, Joe, and that another Joe, and that is that nice is not a synonym for inefficient.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. We're just being very inefficient with respect to the United States is being very inefficient with respect to its COFA obligations. I don't think somebody I don't think there's an office back in the District of Columbia with the Roman columns on the front, and across the door there's this big brass sign that says Bureau of Being Nice. And they have, a couple hundred people in there shuffling papers, trying to figure out how to be nice. I just think that they figure it's a long way away. Nobody can see it. We're concentrating on the southern border. That's my suspicion.
So that inefficiency, Uncle Bob, I think it's fair to say, has led Guam to have at least half of our $2 billion territorial debt, close to $1 billion of that. Of the $2 billion would be due to being inefficient and going after the COFA countries not living up to their agreement with our national government.
No, that's way too high, another Joe.
You think a fourth?
Maybe between 1 and 2 million at the most.
200 million?
1 million and 2 million at the most.
Really? Because they show up with like 5 or 6 kids each?
Well,
right, or most of them on average.
Oh, I don't know.
They all have to go to school.
I don't know.
Thousands of dollars.
I don't know, another Joe.
For 30 years. Anyway, thanks for your time, Uncle Bob. Appreciate it.
Okay, another Joe. Good talking to you. Okay, we're right up here at the home stretch, so I'm going to break we're heading for Louisville, Kentucky, and then I'll come back and take this caller that's just calling in. My mistake. It's not a caller. It's drive-through Jack. So let's head for Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations, check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu.
It takes all of us to protect Guam. Join the Guam Visitors Bureau in our social media campaign series aimed to protect our island and each other in this COVID-19 era. Participate in the Protect Guam movement by wearing your mask, showcasing Guam's heroes, staying active, and downloading the Guam COVID Alert app. Post and share your content with us. Use the hashtag ProtectGuam, and you could win $100. It's that simple. Check out visitguam.com for details. Let's reclaim our lives, our economy, and our tourism industry.
Here we are in the home stretch, Louisville, Kentucky, and I got drive-through Jack gunning his engine, trying to get into the drive-through line. I just noticed a really interesting post here from Charlie Hermosa, who's a regular caller on Ray's show, who is the local manager for APL. And Charlie says, what do the carriers think about the port's production? That's a really interesting question. And Charlie, if you would ever like to chime in and speak to that very question, we'll even take you even though it's not on the card. Okay, so I don't think we'll have time to do it today, Charlie, but tomorrow that would be a really nice item for the card. And then a little later on, Charlie says, I would say a very positive report. Well, positive, negative, whatever it is. Okay, so we head from Louisville, Kentucky to the drive-through at McDonald's where we catch Jack revving up his engine, waiting very impatiently to get into the drive-through line so that he could give the order taker a little airtime today. It's been quite a while, hasn't it, Jack?
It has been, and it's still going to be like that for a couple of days. I'm still under self-quarantine or, house arrest, except I don't have that fancy, exotic electronic bracelet around my ankles there. But, it's up until the 4th that I'd be able to go anywhere. But I was calling, I'm just sort of befuddled about this Rosalind deal. I mean, how bad were the other applicants that he got the job? I mean, what were they, like child rapists, murderers?
There was a ranking. There was a ranking, Jack. So let's see. There were a couple of child rapists, a couple one attempted murder, and a bank robbery, and Frankie Rosalind. So he was the best of the panel. So obviously he was hired, right?
I have no idea, but we're talking about the port here. And, I fiddle down there a lot of times with the port and the airport. And you need a TWIC card. A TWIC card is an access card to these port of entries. I can't see this guy getting the TWIC card. So there's a lot of questions here. or what position did he have at the port?
Program coordinator, too.
Oh, my gosh. So that's just it. I'm just lost about this. I just got home. Maybe it's the jet lag or something. Maybe I'm not catching up to the vibe of the island. But so many people unemployed, and this is your top pick. This is your top pick of the litter. Let's see who they disregarded. I mean, oh my gosh.
Well, Rory said he just doesn't think it's right to throw somebody away because they made a mistake. And then he's also said Rosalind did everything right. So,
and then what did the other applicants do?
We haven't gotten into that. And of course, I would like to find out, but what's written on that stone wall? We can't tell you. It's a
personal
matter. Yeah.
Well, I'm just sort of curious. I just don't understand it. And when it comes to employees, and this is this touches me in a very certain way. There was this restaurant called Take 5. Do you remember it?
Do I remember it? I was almost a plank owner at Take 5, Jack.
Well, when I was just a kid going through grade school, there was a day that my mom and my dad were working late, and I don't know if you remember the lady that used to work there, the waitress. I think her name was Rose.
I remember Rose, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw her, a few years ago before my son left to college, and she was working at the restaurant again. It was at King's, and I remembered her, and I said, you don't remember me, but as a kid, you took care of me. You bought me a hamburger and some fries when my mom and dad were working late, and I just remembered you because of the kindness that you showed to me. I was just a kid, and you showed so much kindness to me, and she just smiled back. And this lady's been working that job for, 40 years, 50 years, that kind of job. And she was still hustling and bustling. That's the kind of worker, I think every organization, whether it's private or public, should be proud of. And I see so many people retiring from Gulf Guam that I wouldn't give a 2-cent lick or a smile or a hello to, because all the garbage that goes through their departments, and they're so proud of this, and I just don't understand all the kudos are given to those people. While Rose, probably one of the most, when I was growing up, and still is one of the most beautiful people that ever treated me as a human being. I can remember them.
Well, that's a pretty tall order, Jack.
But I don't know. Do you know her, right?
I remember her, yeah.
And she was working at King's, and I was just really thrown back. I wish her well. You know, she's listening, and you know, I just wanted to say thank you. You know, for being such a good human being, and such a great worker, and a great citizen. And when I saw her doing the same job all these years later, I had a hug her, and I introduced her to my son, and she doesn't remember me, but you know, it's those little acts of kindness.
Jack, how could anyone forget you? Of course, wait a minute. Take 5 did not have a drive-through, so that explains it.
No, it didn't. It was right behind the First Hawaiian Bank, and it's a little slot there.
Yeah.
But it was
historical preference or notation, Jack. Before that, it was the Piggy Bank Cafe. Before it was Take 5.
That's right.
And a guy named Carl Wegner bought it, or leased it, or whatever, and turned it into Take 5. And during its heyday, it was the political hot stove league for the island. You had politicals and guys like Joe Murphy hanging out there. I used to go over there myself.
So which one's older, Linda's or Take 5?
Linda's. Linda's goes all the way back to 1955.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's another place, but anyways, I was just befuddled. Maybe I'm just a little jet lagged, but I just don't understand how this guy made it to the top of the pile.
Yeah,
You know?
well, I like your theory. Your theory makes as much sense as anybody. And he was the least worst, right? Jack, where did you go on your trip?
Boston. I went to go bury a friend.
Oh, okay.
He'll be well missed, but yeah, there's a blizzard there. As I was boarding the plane, the snow was already falling, and it was coming in heavy. So you know, I wish them well there on the East Coast. But yeah, I had to go there for a funeral and stuff. But anyways, Bob, I'm listening. I'm listening at home, and I won't be released unless maybe if my cousin Angel Sablon writes me a letter, I might get early release. But until then,
that guy pulls a lot of weight. If
I love you, cousin. anyways, Bob, I'll let you go, and I'm listening in.
Okay, Drive-Through Jack. Thanks for calling. Yeah, so Drive-Through Jack. Condolences, Jack, on the necessity for your trip back to Boston.
Wasn't there one time that Take 5 was considered a theme song for this show?
It was, when it was on a different radio station.
Okay.
That was the bumper music.
Yeah.
Take 5, better Take 5, right?
Good song.
Yeah.
Good tune.
And I tried it here when I first moved over here, and Facebook shut us down.
They said take forever.
Yeah, take your 5 and go somewhere else with it. Yeah, if it's possible, you might check that out again to see if there's some way, because that's perfect bumper music. You know,
it's nice.
Yeah, Dave Brubeck. You know, it's on the other side.
No idea.
You remember when music had two sides? Yeah.
Was it a B side or the A side?
Well, there was the main side and then the flip side.
The flip side.
Which you really shouldn't say that on Guam.
Right.
Yeah. The other side was called Unsquare Dance. And it was like anything that Brubeck did. It was really, really great music. You know, I mean, it's the kind of music you don't just listen to while you're shining your shoes or reading a book or something. It is so captivating that you just want to sit there and concentrate on it. Really,
it's good for a record cold evening on Guam.
Yeah,
to sit and listen.
Right. Okay, so I got just a couple seconds here till the end of the rainbow here on Tall Tales. I don't want to start on Joe and George versus the U.S. military again. So reminiscing again a little bit about Take 5, you used to see guys like Jeff Evans, Joe Murphy, John Anderson, moi, in there for coffee at 10 o'clock. You know, the talk show hosts, columnists of the island getting together for a little parley, kind of swapping gossips around and things like that.
Where they say to be a fly on the wall.
Uh-huh. It was a very interesting place. Carl, I think he's still running the local McDonald's, Apple, the local Apple outlet here. He went from Take 5 up to there. It was a lot of color in that place. It's hard to find restaurants like that anymore. In fact, it's hard to find restaurants anymore given this COVID nonsense, right?
All curbside.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll be back tomorrow for another exciting edition of Tall Tales. We'll see you then.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Pitching a smaller stimulus plan. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. 10 Republican senators meeting with President Biden at the White House last night.
President Biden discussed the COVID relief proposal with 10 Republican senators led by Maine's Susan Collins.
I wouldn't say that we came together on a package tonight.
But Collins says Republicans outlined their roughly $600 billion proposal. The president fleshed out his nearly $2 trillion recovery plan.
All of us are concerned about struggling families, teetering small businesses, an overwhelmed health care system.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters the concern is not going too big, but too small.
Fox's Jared Halpern in Washington. Earlier, Senate Majority Leader Schumer said on the Senate floor that he and House Speaker Pelosi are moving forward with a budget reconciliation maneuver to pass the stimulus bill. Despite fears that some variants of the coronavirus might have resistance to the vaccines, White House coronavirus advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci says the shots are still important.
Even when you have a variant circulating in which you may not have a 95% efficacy to prevent infection, it is very important that you might very, very positively prevent serious illness and serious disease.
Johnson & Johnson